In the small, tightly knit town of Fairhaven, Massachusetts, nothing stirs more whispers than church gossip, and nothing is more scandalous than what happened at Grace of Heaven Baptist Church. Pastor Elijah Moore, 42, was beloved by his congregation. Charismatic, articulate, and seemingly devout, he had led the church for over a decade. He was married to First Lady Angela Moore, 40, a woman of grace and discipline, who organized women's ministries and supported Elijah's mission faithfully. But lurking behind the perfect Sunday smiles was a storm of lust, betrayal, and deadly consequences. Angela's younger sister, Vanessa Carter, 29, had recently moved in with the Moores after a difficult divorce. Vanessa was vulnerable, but she was also vibrant, beautiful, and desperate to find purpose. She joined the church choir, where her stunning voice quickly became a highlight of the service. As Vanessa's presence grew in the church, so did her secret relationship with the pastor. What began as subtle glances became secret touches and stolen moments. Elijah, battling temptation and the pressure of leadership, told himself it was just a phase. But sin, once planted, grows deep roots. Behind closed doors, Vanessa believed their love was real. She fantasized about a future. Elijah, however, feared exposure. And when Vanessa became pregnant, everything began to unravel. It started with late-night counseling sessions in the pastor's office. Vanessa often lingered after choir rehearsal. She said it was to help sort hymn books, but in truth, it was to be with Elijah. Angela, trusting both her husband and her sister, remained oblivious. Elijah would later say he felt trapped between love and duty, but the truth was far darker. Congregants began to notice Elijah's sermons had lost their fire. He seemed distracted, paranoid. Vanessa, meanwhile, radiated happiness, the glow of new love and new life. But when she told Elijah about the pregnancy, his demeanor changed. He wasn't elated. He was terrified. "You have to get rid of it," he hissed during one of their secret meetings. But Vanessa, now convinced she held his heart and future, refused. She wanted to keep the baby. "I want to tell Angela," she whispered one night. That's when Elijah knew something had to be done. Elijah's mind spiraled. The thought of his church discovering the affair, of his wife finding out, his career, his life, destroyed. But Vanessa was insistent. "I won't be your secret anymore," she said. Meanwhile, Angela began to notice Vanessa acting strange, more confident, almost smug. One night, Angela found a necklace in her husband's drawer, a gold cross, Vanessa's. She asked Elijah. He lied. She must have left it after choir. Doubts began to take root in Angela's mind, but she didn't want to believe. At church, the choir sang louder. Vanessa's voice soared, but her eyes always found Elijah's. Rumors stirred. A deacon mentioned seeing Elijah and Vanessa talking closely in the parking lot. Elijah panicked. The noose was tightening. Then Vanessa told him she had written everything down, just in case. A confession. She called it insurance. Elijah begged her to destroy it. She refused. That night, he searched her room while Angela slept. He found a journal under her mattress. Pages and pages of passionate entries, details, dates, promises. He burned it in the fireplace. Vanessa never knew. The next Sunday, he preached about betrayal and temptation. The congregation wept. Vanessa beamed. But Elijah had a plan. He invited Vanessa to the old church retreat cabin, told her he wanted to talk about their future. "We'll pray together," he said. "Just you and me." She packed a bag, excited. She thought it was a step forward. It would be her last journey. The church basement was cold, lit only by a flickering bulb that cast long shadows across the walls. Vanessa stepped down in heels, humming faintly. She wore a flowing burgundy dress, her small baby bump just beginning to show. Elijah was already there, standing stiffly near the baptismal pool. He looked exhausted, sunken eyes, wrinkled shirt, Bible clutched tightly in his hand. "We need to pray," he whispered. Vanessa smiled. "I've already been praying, Elijah, for us." But there was no warmth in his eyes, Only fear, regret, and something darker. "I can't let you ruin everything," he said suddenly. Vanessa's smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" She stepped back instinctively, sensing the shift. "You said you loved me, that this baby was a blessing." Elijah shook his head violently. "It's a sin. All of this was a mistake." Vanessa reached for her phone in her purse. "I'm telling Angela. Tonight." Elijah lunged. The phone clattered to the concrete. A scream echoed through the walls, followed by a sickening thud. He grabbed her by the arms. "You weren't supposed to be here. Not like this." Vanessa struggled, kicking, sobbing. "Please, don't do this." But Elijah wasn't hearing her anymore. He was somewhere else, trapped in shame, desperation, and dread. He pushed her. Hard. Her head hit the edge of the stone baptismal pool. Blood pooled around her curls. Her body twitched, then went still. Silence returned to the basement, broken only by Elijah's ragged breathing. He sank to his knees, trembling. "God forgive me. I didn't mean..." But there was no voice from above, no miracle, just death and the sound of dripping water. In a haze, he wrapped her body in a church banner and dragged it into the maintenance closet. He locked the door, wiped the doorknob, and stumbled out the back exit, just as the streetlights flickered on. That Sunday, Elijah stood at the pulpit, preaching about forgiveness. His voice cracked, his hands shook. And in the third pew, Angela sat alone. Vanessa's usual seat, painfully empty. The congregation bowed their heads. Elijah stared into the crowd and thought, they have no idea. Days turned into a week. No one had seen or heard from Vanessa. Her phone rang endlessly. Angela tried calling mutual friends, but no one had a clue. The pit in her stomach began to grow. The church community noticed her absence too. "Is Vanessa all right?" asked Sister June. Elijah offered vague answers. "She needed some time to herself. Please keep her in your prayers." But the questions didn't stop. Angela found Vanessa's suitcase still in the guest room, her makeup on the counter, her toothbrush damp. Vanessa hadn't packed to leave. She had disappeared. Angela confronted Elijah. "You're lying to me. Where is she?" Elijah, cornered, feigned frustration. "She left after we argued. I told her she couldn't stay here forever." Angela didn't believe him. That night, she searched the house while he slept. Her heart pounded when she found Vanessa's ultrasound photo hidden in Elijah's study drawer. Her world collapsed. Tears streamed down her face as she pieced it together. The secret glances, the coldness in their marriage. Vanessa's growing boldness. Her husband and sister had betrayed her, and now her sister was gone. The next morning, Angela didn't go to church. Instead, she went to the police. "I want to report my sister missing," she told them. Her voice was steady, but inside, she was breaking. Detective Mark Ellison took the case. A seasoned officer with a sharp eye and a quiet demeanor, he listened carefully. "Do you suspect foul play?" Angela hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I think my husband might have done something terrible." Detective Ellison began his investigation quietly. He visited the church first, posing as a newcomer. He shook Elijah's hand, studied his face. The pastor smiled warmly, but there was something forced behind the eyes. Ellison asked casual questions. "Has your sister-in-law returned yet?" Elijah replied, "Not yet, but we're hopeful." The detective noted the slight twitch in his brow, the clipped tone. Hopeful men didn't sweat through their collars. Meanwhile, Angela handed over Vanessa's belongings to the police. Texts, photos, the ultrasound image. "She wouldn't just leave," Angela insisted. "She was pregnant. She was planning a nursery." Ellison believed her. Ellison began his investigation at the church. He questioned choir members, combed through Vanessa's phone records, and requested security footage, only to discover the church's surveillance system hadn't worked in months. Meanwhile, Elijah maintained a composed facade. He even visited the police station voluntarily. Vanessa was troubled, he said. She was dealing with emotional issues. I tried to help. But Detective Ellison wasn't convinced. He obtained a warrant to search the church. With Angela's quiet cooperation, investigators swept the property. Then, deep in the boiler room, they smelled something. Behind old crates and hymnals, officers found the baptismal cloth, stained and stiff. And beneath the floorboards, they found Vanessa's body. The church became a crime scene. The flock was horrified. Elijah was arrested during a Wednesday night Bible study. He was still in his robe, holding a Bible. Gasps erupted. One parishioner fainted. Angela stood in the back, expressionless. At the station, Elijah broke down. "I didn't mean to," he sobbed. "I just wanted it all to stop. She was going to ruin everything." The trial of Pastor Elijah Moore became a media circus. Headlines called him the sinful shepherd. The courtroom was packed. Church members, reporters, and a grieving Angela. The prosecution laid out the affair, the pregnancy, the motive. Vanessa's ultrasound photo was entered as evidence. The jury listened, eyes wide, as Elijah's double life was exposed. Elijah's defense claimed mental duress and momentary insanity. But the evidence was damning. Vanessa's texts, the hidden body, the candlestick with his fingerprints. Angela took the stand. With composure and grace, she told the court of her marriage, her trust, her betrayal. Her voice never cracked, until she said, "He took my sister and my faith." After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict, guilty of second-degree murder. Elijah showed no reaction. He sat still, eyes downcast. The judge sentenced him to 35 years in prison. The courtroom was silent. As he was led away, Elijah looked at Angela, hoping for a trace of forgiveness. She looked away. The grace of heaven. Baptist Church closed its doors indefinitely. The congregation dispersed, scarred by the betrayal of the man they once followed blindly. Angela moved out of town shortly after the sentencing. She returned to teaching and joined a new church, quietly, anonymously. She wore no title, only carried a silent strength. On the anniversary of Vanessa's death, Angela visited her grave. She brought lilies, Vanessa's favorite. She knelt, whispered a prayer, and promised to protect her memory. Elijah, now inmate number 472190, spends his days in prison ministry. He leads small Bible studies, hoping redemption can still find him behind bars. But every night, when the lights dim, he dreams of Vanessa, her voice echoing in the sanctuary, her final words haunting the silence. The town of Fairhaven eventually moved on. New pastors came, new hymns filled the air, but the shadow of Elijah Moore lingered like a scar across stained glass. In the end, sin hid not in the alleys of the wicked, but in the heart of a man once considered holy. A man who let desire overtake duty. And so, the tale of Pastor Elijah Moore ends not with redemption, but with ruin. A choir silenced, a sister lost. A lesson forever etched in the walls of grace of heaven.